Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to another edition of the East Northport Jewish Center Shabbat Supplementary video series. I'm your co-host, Chazan Stephen Walvick, along with Rabbi Ian Silverman, who will join us later. We will be giving you some tefillot and some Bible study, as well as the Torah Reading Haftara. And as usual, we will start with Na Refa Na, prayer for healing, for all those who are suffering physically, mentally, or emotionally. You can find links to all the texts in the description of this video. Please like, subscribe, and leave any comments you would like below. Na Refa Na, 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 Na Refa Na Na Refa Na, Na Refa Na Na Refa Na. Today, to introduce our Torah study, we will go with Veshamru. Now, while there are many melodies, and probably some that you're familiar with, I'm going to introduce you to one of mine, which I don't actually get to daven too much here, because usually we do a Hoicha Kedusha for Shaharit, so I don't get to sing this one aloud, but I'm the only one here, so I can do what I want. Veshamru, page 117. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Again. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Beini uven b'nei Yisrael oti li'olam. Beini uven b'nei Yisrael oti li'olam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. V'yishishtem imasa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et haaretz. Ki shishtem imasa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et haaretz. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Uvayom ha-shvi'i Shabbat vayinafash. Uvayom ha-shvi'i Shabbat vayinafash. Now it is my pleasure to introduce my co-host and co-clergy, Rabbi Ian Silverman, to introduce Behar Behukkotai.
Shabbat Shalom. Beautifully done. Chazan, a very lively melody, and hopefully we'll learn it over the years. I'm going to introduce our Parsha this Shabbat, Parshiyot Behar Behukkotai, a double Parsha, which ends the book of Leviticus. We are ending yet another Sefer, another of the 5 books of Moshe, and we will try to remember to say Chazak, Chazak at the end for having finished it. Behar is an interesting parsha. because it really talks about the importance of the Shvi'it, or the Shemitah year, the 7th year, which we're to let the land lay fallow. So important is this mitzvah, say our sages, that it is commanded Bahar at the mountain of Sinai. It's an interesting thing that all of a sudden Mount Sinai is mentioned once again. And really one of the ways of understanding it is that it's of equal importance to all the 10 commandments. And in fact, a variation of the middle one, of keeping the Shabbat. This time it's keeping God's Shabbat for the purpose of creation, resting. There's an interesting thought that's expressed by our sages as to why exactly it's 1 year after 6 years. One of the understandings of it is that mathematically it really works out. The earth is working all the while it's being tilled and while it's nurturing that which is being tilled. Even in the winter months, when there is no produce per se, the earth is doing its nurturing chemicals and so forth. The land, the worm, everything is helping the earth to become fertile and to be able to be a vessel for the coming sowing, plowing, and planting. And in fact, during the time of planting, the earth is working too, double time as it were, 24/7. Well, we are able, and even our animals are able, those that belong to us, to rest on Shabbat. So how many actual days of the year do we actually rest? We learn this from all the weeks of the year, because every week we have a Shabbat, and therefore we have 50 Shabbos, 51 Shabbos. And there are 8 days in the Bible, which are sacred days in which we're to do no work and not work the land. And of course, those are the holidays. And when you add it up, it's 59 days. And when you multiply that by 6, it's 354 days, which is significant because that's exactly the length of a Jewish year. And therefore, the Shemitah, the Shvi'it year, is really a way for allowing the land to catch up with the rest that all of us are entitled to in order to regenerate. Parshiyot Behukkotai, which follows it, is the end, just as many of the books have, when a code of law is introduced. The consequences as to keeping the covenant or not keeping it. In the case of keeping it, the blessings that will accrue to you. In the cases of not keeping it, the curses that will fall upon you as a result of really us being a vassal, being a servant of God who sets the terms. Now our sages were troubled by the length of all the curses and really say that is for the purpose of deterrence. For a person who doesn't want to do that which is good needs a lot of incentive not to do so. A person who wants to do good can be encouraged by general blessing. And so we have a short blessing section, not so short curse section, that happens as a result of doing or not doing the mitzvot that God gives you. A little poem for Behukkotai before we begin with the Torah reading, which will begin on chapter 25. We're delighted this Shabbat that the Torah will be ended, or the Torah reading will be ended by a young man who would be bar mitzvah on this Shabbat and has prepared the Torah reading from towards the end of the Torah reading. So he's going to be completing our Torah reading as well as doing our Haftara. And that young man's name, of course, is Austin. So we're delighted, and we say to him, a mazel tov in advance. The poem. If my statutes you shall follow and keep all my commands, in misfortune you shall not wallow, blessings shall be close at hand. Children, fortune, and livestock shall all thrive and propagate. On safe byways shall you all walk. In your foes' eyes shall you rate. And the opposite, if you engage in sin, transgressions will worsen your lot. In business you will rarely win. In fear and exile shall you rot. Such warnings we see in this chapter, they're meant to be a fence for folks to be loyal ever after, to avoid sins as common sense. The Torah is wise in knowing for fact that good deed brings its own blessing, But deterrence from negative acts requires consequences very distressing. Mitzvot are the ladder whose rungs we climb, like the angels going up and down. We aren't headed upwards all the time. We're imperfect beings all around. It's important to know without being exact that mitzvot brings blessings redundant, that sins have dire consequences that, in fact, unaddressed, bring curses abundant. Leviticus teaches us, try to ascend. Each year more rungs of the ladder. Each of us is needed to continue that trend, to make circumstance good and not badder. Let's be strong and stronger in our insistence. As we end this book, may we labor to make sure that we go an extra distance in as ourselves, loving our neighbor. We begin with the Torah reading, chapter 25 of the book of Leviticus, which you can find in the first triennial section of our Torah reading on page 738 in the Etz Hayyim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe b'har Sinai lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael v'amart alehem, ki tavohu el haaretz asher ani noten lachem, v'shavta haaretz Shabbat l'Adonai, 6 שנים תזרע שדך את שדך, ו6 שנים תזמור כרמך, ואספת את תבואתה, ובשנה השביעית שבת, שבתון יהיה לארץ, שבת לאדוני, שדך לא תזרע, וכרמך לא תזמור. את פיה כצירך לא תכסור, ואת ענבי נזירך לא תבשור. שנת שבתון יהיה לארץ, הייתה שבת הארץ לכם לאכלה, לך לעבדך למתך, ולשכרך לתושבך גרים עמך, ולבהמתך ולחיה של ארצך תהיה כל תבואתה לאכול, וספרת לך 7 שבתות שנים, 7 שנים 7 פעמים, והיו לך ימי 7 שבתות השנים, 49 שנה, ועברת שופר תרועה בחודש השביעי, ב10 לחודש, יום הכיפורים תעבירו שופר בכל ארצכם, וקידשתם את שנת 50 שנה, וקראתם דרור בארץ לכל יושביה, יובל היא תהיה לכם, ושבתם איש של אחוזתו ואיש של משפחתו תשובו, יובל היא שנת 50 שנה תהיה לכם, לא תזרעו ולא תקצרו את צפיחיה, ולא תבשרו את נזיריה, כי יובל היא קודש תהיה לכם, מן השדה תאכלו את תבואתה, בשנת היובל הזאת תשובו איש אל אחוזתו. וכי תמכרו ממכר לעמיתך, או קנו מיד עמיתך, אל תונו איש את אחיו. במספר שנים אחר היובל תקנה בית עמיתך, במספר 2 תבואות ימכור לך, לפי רוב השנים תרבה מקנתו, לפי מאות השנים תמיד מקנתו, כי מספר תבואות הוא מוכר לך, ולא תונו איש את עמיתו, ויראת מאלוהיך, כי אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ועשיתם את חוקותיי ואת משפטיי תשמרו, ועשיתם אותם, וישבתם על הארץ לבטח, ונתנה הארץ פריה, ואכלתם לשובע, וישבתם לבטח עליה, כי תאמרו מה נאכל בשנה השביעית, הן לא נזרע, לא נאסוף את תבואתנו, וציוויתי את ברכתי לכם בשנה השישית, ועשת את התבואה ל3 שנים, וזרעתם את השנה השמינית, אכלתם מן התבואה הישן עד השנה התשעית, עד בוא תבואתה תאכלו ישן והארץ לא תימכר לצמיתות כי הארץ כי גרים ותושבים אתם עמדי ובכל ארץ אחוזתכם גאולה תיתנו לארץ כי ימוך אחיך ומכר לבוסתו וגואלו הקרוב אליו וגאל את ממכר אחיו ואיש כי לא יהיה לו גואל והשיגה ידו ומצא כדי גאולתו וחישב את שני ממכרו והשיב את העודף האיש אשר מכר לו ושב לאחוזתו ואם לא מצא ידו די השיב לו בימים קרו ביד הקונה אותו עד שנת היובל ויצא ביובל ושב לאחוזתו. And it's my honor to call upon Austin to complete the Torah reading.
כי ימכור בית מושב עיר חומה והייתה גאולתו עד תום שנת ממכרו ימים תהיה גאולתו ואם לא יגאל עד מלאת לו שנת תמימה וקם הבית אשר בעיר אשר לא חומה לצמיתות וקונה אותו לדורותיו לא יצא ביובל ובתי החצרים אשר אין לכם הומה סביב על שדה הארץ יחשב גאולה תהיה לו וביובל יצא וערי הלוויים בתי ערי אחוזתם גאולת עולם תהיה ללוויים ואשר יגאל מן הלוויים ויצא ממכר בית ויעיר אחוזתו ביובל כי בתי ערי הלוויים כי אחוזתם בתוך בני ישראל ועושדי מגרש עריהם לא ימיכר כי אחוזת עולם הוא לכם וכי מוך אחיך ומטל ידו עמך וחככת בוגר ותושב וחי עמך אל תיגע מאתו נשך ותרבית ויראת מאלוהיך וכאחיך עמך את כספך לא תיתן לו בנשך ומרבית לא תיתן אליך אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתם מארץ מצרים לתת לכם את ארץ כנען להולכם ללכי.
Shkawach. Very nicely done, Austin. And he'll be back for the Haftara, but first, an introduction. Jeremiah Yirmiyahu is not necessarily known as quite the optimistic of prophets. His messages are not always one full of hope and joy, but rather of warning and danger. And he was the proverbial grumpy old man before that even came to be a term. I bet you of any of the prophets, he was the most likely to ask you to get off his lawn. But this week, in addition to the standard warning of, God, people who make gods for themselves, and they'll be taught a lesson, there is a message of hope. It starts with one of my favorite verses. Adonai uziu ma uziu nusi b'yom tzara elecha goyim yavo u'miyavsei aretz yomru, etc., etc. God, Uzi, my strength, my stronghold, my refuge in time, in day of trouble. And that's a line that strikes me almost every day as we continue to struggle with this quarantine and the stay-at-home and those who are suffering from COVID-19. And it's a line that sticks with me, as well as the idea of God being our hope. Mikveh Yisrael Adonai, kol ozevecha yevoshu. Hope of Israel, O Lord. You know, all who forsake you will suffer, but hope you, God, are our hope. There's another famous line that we have, Baruch HaGever Asher Yitach Adonai v'Hayad Adonai Mivtacho. You know, blessed is one who trusts in God, whose trust is in the Lord alone. And that can be scary. You know, this is Jeremiah is telling us to do a trust exercise. That in fact, not only is it's not enough to trust in God, but it's arur hagever shech yivtach ba'adam. Cursed is one who trusts in people, and that's not a message I can necessarily get behind all the time, because that's a message that I see a lot on social media. Is, you know, we don't trust those around us. We don't trust the media, or we don't trust the government, or we don't trust the people telling us to stay at home, or trust those telling us to break quarantine. And Jeremiah is kind of saying that. But I don't think we can necessarily live that way. We have to, yes, the most important thing is to trust in God. But we have to have sub-level, not trust only in man, but we must find way to trust each other. Even if we don't agree with the messages that we're hearing on whatever side, the other side of whatever aisle that we're on, we need to find way to trust that they mean well, that they want the best for us, for our society, for our country, and that anything that is suggested is not out of some pettiness or a desire to hurt this country or to hurt our people or for purely political motives, but that on some level, no matter how abhorrent someone else's suggestions might appear to you on face value, that on some level they want to get through this challenge together. And we can argue over the best way to do it and the costs and the benefits and what's good and what's bad. But we have to start from a place of trust in each other, that we all want what's best for the world, what's best for America, what's best for our community. Because without that trust, the only thing that grows is hate and violence, and that's not a way that I can live. And finally, the Haftara ends with the verse, Rifa'ini Adonai ve'erafehu sheni v'vashea ki tehilati ata. Heal me, O God, and let me be healed. Save me and let me be saved, for you are my glory. And the rabbis took this line as well and put it in our weekly Amida that we say 3 times a day. But they also did a little switch to it. Because it's not enough to say, Rifa'ini Adonai, heal me and I will be healed. But maybe the rabbis too looked at Jeremiah and his crotchety demeanor of not necessarily trusting everyone and says, you know, we're all in this together. And so the words in our Amidah are Rifa'inu Adonai, heal us now, or heal us now, as my colleague Cantor Leon Scher would say. But that we have to pray for healing of all of us, those with which we agree, those with which we disagree, those that we love, and those that we don't like. We all need healing in this tough and challenging time. And with that I say, Amen. We'll continue now with the Haftara, which will be chanted by Austin Schnitzer. Take it away, Austin.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'yamim tovim v'ratah v'divreihem hane'amarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai chabocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'imyecha emet v'atzedek. Adonai uzi u'ma'uzi u'nusi b'yom tzara Elecha goyim yavou me'avzei haaretz v'yomru ach shecher nachalu avotenu hevel v'im b'mo'il hayaselu adam Elohim v'hema l'Elohim l'achein hineni modiam b'pam hazot odiam et yadi ve'et gevurati v'yadeu ki shemi Adonai Hata Yehuda Ketuvah Ba'e Barzel B'Zipor and Shamir Harsha Aluach Libam Ukarna Mizbachatechem Kizkor B'nechem Mizbachotam Va'ashrehem Alei Tra'anan Al Geva'ot HaGeva'ot Haravi Basadeh Hilacha Cholot Rotecha Lava Zetain Bamotecha, v'chatat b'chol gvulecha, v'shamatata, uvcha minachalatecha, asher natati lach, v'ha'avaditicha et oyevecha, v'art asher yidata, ki yesh, kidachem ba'pi, Adon tukad, kol amar Adonai. Aror hagever asher yiftach ba'adam v'sam basar zevel v'min Adonai yisur libo v'haya akyor barava v'lo yoreh ki yavoto v'shachan harim b'midbar evet melecha v'lo teshev Baruch hagever asher yiftach ba'adonai v'haya Adonai miftacho Adonai ki shatul mayim v'yova yeshua sharshav v'lo yoreh ki yavoham v'haya alehu ra'anon v'bishna batzaret lo yidal v'lo yamish masa peri al kol falev mikol v'nushu mi yedainu Ani Adonai Hoker lev b'chein kelayot v'latet li'ish ki rachav ki fri malalav kored dagar v'lo yalad aseh osher v'lo v'mishpat b'chati yamav ya'azvenu uv'charito yiyeh navo ki seh kavod maram nevishon mikom mikdashenu mikveh Yisrael Adonai kol ozevecha yevoshu v'shirai ba'aretz yikatevu ki hazevu mikor mayim chaim et Adonai rafa'eni Adonai v'erafei hoshini v'ivasheh ki tehilati ata.
Beautiful explanation, cousin to the Haftara, beautifully chanted, Austin. A siman tov, a mazel tov, and we look very forward to becoming bar mitzvah in our shul in the fall. We should say chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. We should all be strengthened because we have finished the laning of the third of the books of Torah, and customarily that is done. In the Parsha's second half, Parshiyot Behar Behukkotai, we have an interesting section, as I spoke to you before, about the curses that God enumerates to deter us from straying from the Torah. And there's a beautiful passage which describes the process of full forgiveness. The people will be, in fact, sincerely regretful. They will do tshuva. They will be truly repentant, tenaciously repentant. And about that, God says, "And I shall remember Jacob, and I shall remember Isaac, and I shall remember Abraham, and the land too shall I remember," which will lead to God's full forgiveness and reinstatement of his treasured people. There's a lot to say about this, but suffice it to say that it can teach us about the things that can either make us less or make us fully human. The commentator Nachlat Tzvi notes a possible contradiction that this passage works in reverse. I'm mentioning first, I'll remember Jacob, I'll remember Isaac, I'll remember Abraham. And then it says, I'll remember the land. But this is contradictory because isn't it that the land was given to us at the time after enslavement, in which Jacob went down to Egypt and so forth? Then the land was given to us when Joshua brings us in. So why is it that if we're going backwards in time, the last thing that's mentioned is land? Well, maybe you could make the case that Abraham was promised the land. Maybe it should be at the beginning in that sense. But one of the explanations given by the commentators is that the soil is part of us. And in a sense, we were made of clay, out of dust, just like the animals. It was God that breathed into us, our souls, according to the creation story. This is the reason that the soil is also punished when Adam and Eve were evicted. We were, after all, fashioned from earth, from clay. And only that divine breath that was breathed into us provided us with our soul and uplifted us towards heaven. Therefore, God will always factor in the earthly element that we have when judging us. What do you expect, some might argue? We're made from dust and earth. We're lowly. Of course we're selfish and imperfect, others will say. And others pipe in, though, but we're made a little less than angels because God breathed into us and planted in us our soul. A wise rabbi, Milton Steinberg, alav Shalom, once pointed out this duality of human beings that exists even in the things that we say. For instance, when we do something wrong, we say, what do you expect from them? He's, after all, only human. And then, God forbid, if something bad is going to happen towards us, we say, how can you treat me like this? I'm a human being. Right? There's a duality there. So about this, I decided to examine a bit. What are 5 things that detract and that can make us fully human? And I based them both on the Parsha, the first Parsha, Parshiyot Behar, about Shemitah, Shvi'it, the 7th year, and also about our current calendar and the secular calendar, and 4 things and 4 dates that are called to mind this week. The first thing that makes us fully human is the degree to which we, the earth, fully remember, just like in the Pasuk. And in fact, in the creation story, Adam and Eve are told to both marshal and guard our precious natural resources. This is part of what makes us holy people. This is why, in fact, it says Har Sinai, that God commanded these things on Har Sinai, even though Har Sinai is way back in a distant memory at this point in the Torah narrative, because it's really attached to what makes us the holiest of people, a people that observes the Shabbat, and one that requires us that we allow the land also, and God to have the Shabbat in his creation. God wants the Israelites to know that the soil, the mountains, the vegetation are miraculous and properly guarded, will never exhaust themselves. But tenderness to nature, as well as the charge to marshal its resources, you see, is one of the things that make us fully human. A second aspect, touching upon full humanity, is not being enslaved. We know, of course, this in terms of the full freedom that we just commemorated at our Seders, although we didn't quite feel so free in this day and age, in this era of not having to have our families along with us. But we commemorated our freedom and the excitement of moving out of enslavement into liberation. But did you know that on May 15th in the year 1800 in Jewish history, that the Jews of Malta were officially relieved of their slavery status to the Maltese? I didn't know it. I wonder if you did. But apparently the pirates, the Knights of St. John, would capture Jews in the sea routes and along with other people imprison them in Malta for ransom. Venice was a place in Italy where there was a whole committee for ransoming Jews that were captured and kept in Malta. A community of imprisoned slaves, sometimes would languish. They became a community where I think were there from 1645 to 1800, considered Jewish slaves. There was a revolving Jewish imprisoned community there. They made synagogues there. They had cemeteries there. Finally, it came to an end. But the sordid tale of ransom is still with us. Of course, it was relived in Nazi times. There's stories all about that, about ransoming Jewish communities. And currently it's being waged by Hamas for 2 dead IDF soldiers and 2 imprisoned civilians. They want to trade thousands of terrorists imprisoned in Israel for them. Currently there's a stalemate. Such realities still plague us and detract from our full humanity. A third aspect of full humanity, or its deprivation, is when Jews are accused of plotting to harm others. Nothing has been more baseless and nothing more lethal for Jewish welfare. Ironically, blood libels and so-called plots to harm ended up in Jewish persecution, ended up in Jewish massacre on May 12, 1540. May 12th. Pope Paul III issued a papal bull which cleared the Jews of blood libels. Tragically, not every pope was sympathetic, and some of them increased the power of the Inquisition. This day, today, the blood libel apparently is still alive, coming to the fore again in a prominently featured painting, which was introduced just before Passover by a very talented artist, though bigoted artist, Gasparo, whose work is prominently featured in Catholic institutions the world over. In this painting that he unveiled shortly before the Passover Easter season, he depicted the famous blood libel with all of its horrible stereotypes of Jews and all of the falsehoods. I and my friend, Father Joseph Moreau of East Northport, penned a letter to Cardinal Dolan in Manhattan and to Pope Francis in the Vatican, describing the pain that this libel has caused through the centuries to the Jewish community and pleading with both of them to forcefully renounce it. I've yet to hear a reply, but the fact that Monsignor Moreau got up from his sickbed to co-author it with me was very important to me. We Jews wonder when our full humanity will be restored by denouncing this hateful artist, Gasparo. Which is why we take joy in the third aspect of full humanity that was restored to us in the calendar year on May 14th, because it was on that date that David Ben-Gurion in 1948 declared a Jewish state, a Jewish homeland, Jewish sovereignty, to which any Jew had free access and free harbor from any state of oppression or simply for desired immigration. The fullness of a Jew's humaneness, of humanity, can best be experienced in the state of Israel. The Jew in Israel functions to the rhythms of the Jewish calendar, the Jewish holidays, Jewish values. No longer must a Jew compartmentalize themselves, adapt themselves, and endure the insults of oppressive majority cultures. After 2,000 years, a national homeland contributes to a Jew's full humanity. Did you know that on May 13th of the calendar year, the Jewish Mark Twain, Shalom Aleichem, died at the age of 57 in 1916. Shalom Aleichem was a great author whose books, one of his stories, is what the Fiddler on the Roof is based upon. And of course, many other stories which he penned, which fills like some 30 volumes. By the way, we have them right here in our bookcase in the Beit HaMidrash. Some days you might take one down and take a look at it. Although if you don't speak Yiddish, you won't understand a word. He wrote mainly in Yiddish, but also in Russian and Hebrew. His stories challenge authority and rail against injustice. His stories, most of all, find a kernel of humor in life, sometimes even in the saddest moments. The Jewish sense of humor has often saved us and brings about our fullest humanity. Being able to laugh at oneself and being able to laugh at life's absurdity is one of the traits that make us Jews fully human. So there you have the things that make us fully humans and detract from it. Things that are made up of both the earthly and the heavenly. Number one, the end of enslavement, both ancient and modern. Number two, the end of libels and hate, which begin a road to full humanity. Number three, the creation of Jewish sovereignty, which enables our ability to live our full humanity as Jews in a land of our own. Number four, the Jewish commitment to restore and replenish the environment around us, to recall and actualize our duties to the land and to our resources. And number five, the Jewish sense of humor, which always brings perspective and calm and help to make us fully human too. May these lessons keep us aspiring towards our fullest humanity as Jews. And to this we say, Amen. I now call upon our Chazan Wolvik. Thank him for his wonderful production yet again this week and his excellent editorial skills to conclude with the concluding hymn for this Shabbat Behar Behukkotai, Shabbat Shalom.
Yeshkoach, Rabbi. Words to live by. We will conclude with Adon Olam. So I went back to the other videos to try and figure out which Adon Olam melody I have not used. And interestingly, I haven't used the traditional one. So here is the traditional Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem ko yitzir nivra le'ed na'asa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra v'achare kiflot hakol levado yimlok nora v'hu haya v'hu hove v'hu yihye b'tifara v'hu echad v'en sheni lehamshilo lehachbira v'li reshit v'li tachlit v'los v'hamisra v'hu eli v'chai goali v'tzor chavli v'yetzara v'hu nisi umanosli menat kosi b'yom ekra b'yado of kidruch Baruchi Giviyati Adonai li velo ira. Shabbat Shalom, Vorach. Like, subscribe, comment, yada, yada, yada. See you next week.